What's up guys? In today's video I'll be sharing my favorite unconventional row. I've been doing it over the last 2.5 months and will 100% keep it in my long-term programming. My only regret is that I didn't do it sooner. So I highly recommend you give the inverted cable row an honest shot despite its weird appearance, because let's be honest, that's not an argument for not doing an exercise. You're either trying to get gains or you're not. And it just so happens that inverted cable rows tick all the right boxes for hypertrophy and efficiency. So let's get right into it. First thing I want to point out is that this exercise is technically not new. It's been around for a long time in the powerlifting world, namely being the reverse banded row. But that's the thing. It's always been a mobility builder, being primed up for benching, reducing injuries, getting some higher repetitions, typically above 30, not really loading it in a way where mechanical tension would adequately take place. And so progressive overload has by far been the only variable that prevented powerlifters and bodybuilders from doing this movement to build muscle. That is, until I came around with this very simple workaround. Doing the same exercise, or at least similar enough, but with the cable station. Because going back to the bench press, what is proper form and how do we reinforce it? In fact, what do all the top strength athletes recommend? Doing a tremendous amount of rowing, hitting the opposite movement pattern. But the thing is, their exercise recommendations on the specificity scale have never been one-to-one. It's always been generic rows. Just drive that volume into the upper back. That's somehow going to take care of all your stability needs on the bench, which is true in an absolute sense. But with this exercise, it's even better. Hence why there was the original drill with the reverse bands. But now with the cables, you're reinforcing the scapulohumeral rhythm. You're rowing the bar to your chest, literally, just like you would do with a bench shirt. And actually, I would argue that using something like a slingshot can also help in this purpose, but I digress. You're rowing the bar to your chest, maintaining that tightness, but then on the way up, you're allowing those scaps to protract. So retract, protract. This very simple drill, which is the correct way to bench press for longevity and maximum strength, is happening 100% of the time when you do inverted rows on a bench. Again, the tactile feedback of your back being on the bench is what makes this exercise so good. So any powerlifter, anyone who wants a bigger bench press, can't skip out on these, or at least it's recommended not to. And then for hypertrophy, because that's what a lot of you came here for, right? Don't worry, I got you covered on that as well. So, what makes a good hypertrophy exercise? The number one criteria would probably have to be stability, because that's how we maximize force production and therefore motor unit recruitment of the primary movers. And with the inverted cable row, we have two points of contact. Your feet being anchored on the power rack or cable station, as well as the back. See, this has an advantage over chest supported only rowing, because that's just one point of contact. Yeah, your feet are going to be planted, but they're not anchored, and that's the difference here. With the inverted cable row, you are maximally wedged in, like freaking Santa Claus trying to deliver you some gifts. You are not budging and can go as heavy as you like. Pure dummy proof, all you have to do is row. So you can overload to infinity and probably have less plateaus. Loading potential is never going to be a problem. Not to mention the fact that neither will your lower back or abs be problematic, because you're removing that element. It's all upper back, lats, biceps, forearms. And isn't that the real reason why we row? Our spinal erectors can get taken care of through deadlifts, good mornings, hyperextensions. You don't need to simultaneously brace yourself in this position and potentially make that a weak link. Well, this variation is arguably the most lower back friendly I've ever come across, because you're laying down. This is such a common sense thing to say that there's not much to elaborate on. Because when you do a regular cable row, yeah, your feet are wedged in and there's a lot less lower back. Like, you cut out most of it, let's keep it real. But there's still some degree. Same thing when you do a dumbbell row. Basically, the only way you can get this effect is by doing a chest supported row. But then you lose out on that foot stability aspect which this gives you. And when you go really heavy on those chest supported rows, it can sometimes make you feel uncomfortable. At least for me. I feel like I can't breathe properly. Obviously, a solution is to put something soft on top, or you can always hang off. But just to say, this, although looks awkward in the sense that your legs are being spread apart, the comfort itself is not an issue. So if you can get that whole judgment thing out of your brain, just like what people said many years ago about neck training, then there's a high chance you'll prefer this stability-wise. No pain, all gains, blends perfectly with any program. So if you got a leg day the next day, you're good. Or even the day before, if your spinal erectors were shot, never a concern. Or if you were injured in the lower back, you can do these. And another major benefit that makes this worth your time is the fact that not only can you go maximally heavy, but there's zero cheating. Why? Because when people cheat on a row, what are they doing? Hyperextending the back, moving this way. So when you do a barbell row, the chest raises, they're hinging the load. Same thing with a cable row. They'll bring themselves forward and then backwards. There's always that lean back action, right? And they say it's to get a better squeeze, but it's not. You're just trying to go heavier. Let's keep it real. I do it. You do it. Even a lot of pros make this mistake, or cheat row rather. So it's not bad per se, but that does cause you to lift heavier than what is required. And it doesn't mean you're getting extra gains. All you're doing is compromising the stimulus fatigue ratio. Now with inverted cable rows, it's not possible to lean back because the bench is a physical limitation. You are stuck in it. So if you want to do this little jerking motion, yeah, good luck. You're going to have to break your bench? Like, what are you going to do? It's real strict because you're wedged in. So that whole torso movement thing is already going to be cut out from the get-go. You're still getting that protraction though. So you're stretching out the lats. And then when you do the rowing itself, like you can arch your back, that's fine. You're still going to get that maximum squeeze, but you're not going beyond the bench. That's all I'm trying to say. So that whole raising issue becomes a non-issue. And that can make all the difference in keeping you accountable. And you know for a fact that every rep that you add was legit. You gained real strength in the primary movers. So that's one advantage over chest support. Like they both do the same thing stability-wise, but one leads to a stricter form. And then the next thing is that you have a diagonal direction of resistance. So in a way, this will feel like a Yates row without the compromised range of motion. You're not rowing up here unless you get really close to the cable station or power rack and put the feet all the way up here. So now you're gonna look extra exotic. But if the legs are somewhat straight, and keep in mind, the closer you get to the edge of the bench, your feet can be lower. But in general, I recommend them being slightly above you. This way, your body's not gonna raise when you lift a load that exceeds your body weight. So you probably don't have to worry about this for now, but eventually this could be a potential concern. But when you put the legs up, it's a zero issue, so just keep that in mind. But what I'm saying is, when you do it the conventional way, it's not a straight up and down resistance. And that's why I said it's not exactly the same as a reverse banded row. It's close enough, but you're actually rowing from about here. Therefore, no matter what implement you're using, you're gonna be rowing to the lower ab, hip area, like in that zone. It's not gonna be a high row. So you're getting a nice lat bias row with a little touch of thickness. Overall, the contractions are gonna be amazing. And if you use converging handles, which there's so many things you can use, D handles, angles 90, a spreader bar, the list goes on. You're going to wrap around the body, which is superior to doing a V-bar row like this, which is what everybody does. No, you can go inside, and now that squeeze is beautiful. Plus you get more retraction of the scapula, so that's why I'm saying there's still some good upper back in there. And then you can leverage the rib cage because the arm is not just staying to your sides like this. You're moving inwards. And that is what's gonna give you the best stretch on the lats, especially since we're at a diagonal angle. The plane of motion is different. All I'm gonna say is, think of the Yates row with a super range of motion and more stable, while reducing the core engagement. Finally, inverted cable rows are extremely simple to set up and don't require much equipment. All you need is a flat bench, not even adjustable, and a single pulley, though you can use dual as well, set to a high position. So bring over your bench to the station or power rack like I'm using, lay down, anchor your feet. Yeah, they're going to be a bit spread open. It is what it is. Or it could be narrow. You might be lucky if you're doing this at the gym. Grab the handles, ideally converging, row, get to work. This will quite literally take you less than a minute to set up. Compared to the original ghetto row, which I did throughout the entirety of this year, which requires 2 cables, this is a bit faster and less cumbersome. Because if you just did lat pull downs and now you want to do some cable rows, you have to disassemble your setup, especially if your power rack does not have that back post. So you got to anchor it sideways and spend a bit more time getting everything right. And then even when you unrack the weight, it's never going to be straight out. You kind of have to leg press yourself out to the side. So you do need a bit more oblique strength to get into the starting position. And then the number one limitation by far is the fact that you can only use smaller restrictive implements like this bar. Anything longer that extends to about here, and you're going to be doing partial reps, because in the bottom position, when your arm is fully locked out and you're stretching, the loading pin is still on the ground. So it's only when you pull a couple of inches, so you might be close to 90 degrees, is when it's going to start to lift. So you're missing out on the most hypertrophic part of the lift if using those longer or even converging handles. And that's a limitation in terms of variations you could do. So why not have something, because you're set high, you can use any attachment, right? Why not do that? Not to mention the fact that they can immediately be done after another vertical pull. Or in general, it's just fast to set up. You did weighted pull-ups. Let's say you have 2 plates on your loading pin. Okay, put your cable on, grab a 45, toss it, clip, bench, get to work. You're already in that position. This doesn't take you out of your groove. So the fact that it's so much faster and you can do more makes it, quite honestly, the best home cable rowing option if you're not going to invest in this very expensive, elaborate setup. This is bare bones, it gets the job done. And I'm using it to level up my back. Basically, no matter how you analyze inverted cable rows, the benefits are plentiful and can serve most lifters. So give it on a shot. I love them. You're going to continue seeing them in my workouts. I didn't just make this video for clout or views. In fact, it might even be the opposite, because I know that a lot of people are judgmental, but I need to share it because I really do believe in it. And I think I did a great job at backing up my arguments using facts and logic, not emotions. So try it. Just try it. And let me know how your back feels the next day.